Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EIC webcast, The Benefits of Industry-Specific Data Management. I'm pleased to introduce Brendan Boyle, President and CEO of Vintri Technologies, who will be our speaker today. Brendan is an original founder of the company, which was founded in 2012. Throughout his career, Brendan has gained significant and invaluable experience from regulatory working with key industry stakeholders and regulatory bodies across North America. He regularly speaks at industry conferences and is a sought-after expert on the subject of data management in the energy sector. Brendan is a licensed professional engineer in the province of Alberta and is an alumnus of Queen's University. A born and raised Calgarian, Brendan is an avid golfer, although I'm told his scorecard doesn't necessarily reflect this, and one who possesses a love of sports and the outdoors. I want to welcome Brendan today. And just for the audience, you can please put your questions in the chat and we'll look to answer those at the end of the presentation. So now I'd like to turn it over to Brendan. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Laurie. Appreciate the intro. And yeah, definitely the bio around the golf. Yeah, scorecard has not looked very good lately, but alas, this is how it goes. So, well, thanks everybody for joining. Pleased to be here virtually, at least to give you a little bit of insight into the world of industry-specific data management. Great to chat to this group, the EIC membership, about this exciting initiative. I think, obviously lots of things progressing in the world of ESG and in that side of things. And I think data management, particularly of the supply chain, as we're building and operating energy infrastructure, is becoming more and more important. And I think there's some really good correlations between that ESG side of things, but also I wanted to provide some insight into the additional benefits that this can provide your organization and the industry as a whole. A quick intro to Vintri, our business as well. We are a supply chain data management organization for the energy infrastructure space. We've been around for a few years now, as Laurie mentioned in the introduction, and we're pleased to report that we've now processed data for over $40 billion worth of assets, energy infrastructure asset in the space. So obviously there's some need for this and some support, and we're excited to be a part of the changing landscape that's happening there. So I will jump ahead. Quick bio about myself. I know Laurie gave a little intro there, but more importantly in this, I was able to work in industry before this. I worked for several years for a pipeline company up here in Canada. I am from the very frigid right now north, and was able to see some of the pain of data management and how that felt. And we'll get into a little bit more about that. I know I haven't really necessarily introduced it, but what that meant and the pain that the industry feels around that. And obviously I've had the great opportunity to start a company around it and help make a difference in the space. Excited to share that with everyone. So, let's take a step back and talk about some of the big things that are going on out there. I mean, there's a lot of trends. I'm sure that everybody's hearing a lot of buzzwords. You can see on the right side of the screen there, the various things that are taking place and going on in the industry. I think this concept of digital transformation incorporates data management, and data management is something that's really starting to show up. How do we manage the information that comes into our organization about our infrastructure, what we have, how we're operating it, et cetera, et cetera? This is becoming more and more important, and I think previously this was probably, I'm sure we've all seen the file boxes. The storage space is filled with those file boxes, or perhaps the transition to some scanned documentation about your infrastructure, what you have, where it is. That's kind of where things were at. We're now seeing that importance to change and transition, and I think those who are pushing more for this formal data management strategy, no longer is this now just a kind of peripheral competitive advantage, but it's really becoming table stakes for what we're doing. I mean, it's from the changes in regulatory climate and the push for things like TVC compliance, which I think probably most folks on the webinar would be familiar with. We're seeing that push coming, and of course, we want to provide some ideas on what benefit it can bring to you, and also why you should go about doing that. Just maybe taking a step back, we like to always, to understand we have a broad crowd and give a little bit of context, kind of a data 101 in terms of what's out there. And it's worth noting the three formats of data: unstructured, semi-structured, and structured. I think what we predominantly see in our industry is a lot of unstructured. This is paper or digital paper, things that are kind of hard copies. We've all passed, done a job lookup and here's the binder and passed it across to operations. Lots of paperwork traditionally in the industry. Semi-structured on the other side, this is kind of a little bit more of a modern concept. This is applying metadata tags to various aspects and of a document or some unstructured data. Allows a little bit of searchability, but it really doesn't get you into that full kind of database format that I think we're starting to look for more in the industry. And of course, structured. This is kind of the creme de la creme. This is the real stuff that allows you to search, filter, analyze, assess. This is grids, rows, and columns with alphanumeric values. So without getting too technical into that, think your Excel spreadsheets, database files, etc. That is the structured data, and that is kind of the direction that we want to push things, of course. Now let's shine the lens on the energy infrastructure supply chain. Whether you're building a pipeline or a gas processing plant or a compressor station or whatever it may be, we've all got a supply chain that consists typically of the material manufacturers, all the way through logistics providers, construction, and then into operations, of course. And when we think about that, think pipes, valves, flanges, fittings, lots of data about them, mill reports, various coating specifications, coating data, all sorts of data that's coming from your supply chain about what you eventually will own and operate down the line. Fast forward into construction, lots of survey data, weld logs, as-built, etc. All of this is information that's being collected and gathered and provided from your vendors in some way, shape, or form, or inspectors, and eventually forms what your infrastructure is. Now, traditionally in the space, I think we've seen quite a bit of unstructured information here, like I've given the examples of passing job books off at the end, binders, etc. We've seen a big push for scanning of this information into perhaps that semi-structured state, but we're still trying to get a little bit more towards that structured side of things. And we've actually got some great recommendations at the end of the presentation that I'll share on that. And one final slide on the data 101 kind of things. I think this concept of usable data, what is information that you can actually use and glean something out of? That's what we want to get towards. You see the top of our pyramid here, informed decisions. That's us using the data, the information that we have to make better decisions. Think being more proactive, more preventative, all these types of things. And we'll get into a lot more detail on that as well. But we want to push the industry in general towards usable data. And we're going to get into a couple of ways that we can help you get there. With that in mind, back to kind of the overarching concept of data management, industry-specific data management, and where we're at with it. Now, data management in general is a very broad topic, and I think you can imagine there's probably lots of ways that you can manage what comes into you. You can put them in a SharePoint or a Dropbox site, for example. That is data management. What it doesn't have within it, though, is any sort of context or industry-specific knowledge in terms of how you need to run your business, things that are relevant. Those things don't understand the regulatory climate, the various TBC compliance, traceable, verifiable, complete data and record-keeping requirements that exist out there in the space now. So, we can imagine that there are lots of solutions out there, but as per the slide, not all of them are created equal. And I think, I'm sure you can imagine, those who are achieving the greatest benefit and unlocking the value of their data, these are the ones using the industry-specific data management solutions. And we'll obviously get into some of those benefits as we go forward here. So what is an industry-specific data management platform? That is a good question. And I think the most important part to that is context. These are systems and software that understand what is important to you, the energy infrastructure owner operators. What do you need to have from an information standpoint? What are the rules? What are the compliance specifications that are relevant to your business? How can you integrate this information in a seamless fashion into your existing tools to help push better information into those tools. Think about all the stuff, the work that you're doing in integrity management, throughout operations, all the various things that we're trying to achieve. We want to get ahead of any problems. We want to be able to see the future, for lack of better words. And it's really imperative that you have this contextualized data set about your infrastructure. What is it that I have? So that you can apply that to those more forward-looking concepts. We want to, we want to be able to have dashboards that tell us if we're perhaps out of compliance, and we want to have structure in that data management platform that allows us to respond to our regulators quickly and stop spending lots of money on doing that. I have some examples even from my time back working in industry where we often spent months looking for various information. We had the information. It just took us a long time to gather together that information, which inevitably is cost to your business. So that, industry specific data management platforms, really the fundamentals of that are that they have context applied to them. They understand the industry and the business that we're working in. So a couple of benefits. Per the kind of theme of the presentation, we wanted to share with you how you can use this industry-specific data management within your supply chain for ESG benefit, but also several other areas. I think you can imagine risk mitigation on the regulatory side of things is a big area. Asset value maximization, that's a great one that I'm excited to share a little bit about with you there. And of course, saving money. I think just generally applying really good, sound data management practices, you want to save money, both while building your infrastructure and operating it for the long term. So let's delve in a little bit to the details on this. On the ESG side of things, quite relevant, I think, to this group. Everybody's looking to progress how we're able to, report and manage and show various initiatives within our organizations as it relates to ESG. And I think, one of them obviously is being able to prove that you know exactly what you have. And that's certainly something that comes from industry-specific data management. Like I was mentioning before, we had some of that information, but it took us 6 months to dig it up. That concept now today, how about 3 clicks? It's all there. I can show you everything that we've got. It's very, the ability to share that information is quite readily available where needed. So that's helping with that public trust and confidence in terms of what we're operating. And then, of course, you've got more the concept on the environmental side of things. How can we use some of this data to reduce our footprint and the various environmental impacts that we may be having? And we have a great example that I can share from work we did with one of our clients, where really sound data management throughout the whole supply chain process, material manufacturing and into construction. And through using that data, they were able to optimize moves of their material out to site from various stockpile sites and minimize over 5,000 miles of truck traffic, thus saving money for one thing, but also reducing that carbon footprint, of course. So that's a nice little win for things from an ESG perspective. And then, of course, another big picture kind of concept is, we want to run safer, more reliable infrastructure. That's good for everybody. Less failures, less leaks. This is a good thing. And leveraging information and this data through an industry-specific data management platform with context allows us to feed better information into those things and unlock some more value from the integrity management programs and the like that we have. Shifting gears to the regulatory side of things, as I mentioned, I'm sure most are familiar with the mega rule and various changes that are coming from PHMSA, DOT, and the various regulatory bodies that oversee our industry. The traceable, verifiable, and complete concept is something that's here and being rolled out as we speak in various different shapes and sizes, and really being able to leverage a platform to help provide you with visibility into where you may be out of compliance, where you may have risk, help respond to the regulatory requests or audits. Anything that can benefit us in that side of things, I think, will really generally help the industry and each owner operator specifically as they go through their own journey. So, using that information, it will help you with those data-driven decisions, and it will also really provide transparency within your organization in terms of that compliance to some of those new and ever-changing regulatory requirements. Asset value maximization is another really big area that's worth talking about, and I think we've probably all got a story about a point where part of your network was sold off or transferred to another company, and there's the inherent sharing of file boxes or the sharing of whatever sort of information you may have. And typically, I think what happens in those scenarios is there's a lot of through the due diligence process, there can be risk to your asset value if you're unable to prove some of this about the infrastructure and the data that you have. And so inevitably, we want to help provide the industry through an industry-specific data management platform the way to maximize that value, avoid those sort of discounts through due diligence, and protect that value of your asset. So I'm sure you can imagine, if you've got this really sound data management system that's holding all the information about your energy infrastructure, when it comes time for a sale or a transfer or anything in that regard, you have that information, you can transfer it over easily. There's no risk to your assets being devalued through that process. And of course, it goes without saying, but I think cost savings are just imperative in terms of this. We want to show that being diligent about our data and records and how we manage the information about what we're operating, it's imperative that we show cost savings on it. And I think there's, obviously through some of the other benefits that I've mentioned already, you can see some of the cost savings taking shape, but envision all the ability to optimize that supply chain process, optimize how you're building the infrastructure, reduce wasted material, reduce over ordering, things like that will help really bring down overall capital costs of your projects. As you're going into operations, one of the things that, like I mentioned, and some of our clients often mention, is there were search and rescue missions to find various information that they needed throughout operations. We want to really cut down on the cost of that as well. Have that information at your fingertips, a couple of clicks, and you should be able to find what you need. And then, of course, obviously, these are long-term savings as well, but that ability to become more proactive and preventative, which I think, as we've said in the past, benefits the entire industry. These are, that having that foundation of information with context applied to it, that allows you to really get into those more preventative and proactive types of solutions, which are inevitably will benefit the industry as a whole. Okay, so with that, I wanted to leave some recommendations, some thoughts, some ideas in terms of what can be done. What are some easy steps that we can take? And I think, whether it's your responsibility or under your purview within your organization to purchase material or procure contractors to build your infrastructure, I think it's worth chatting with your various procurement groups or teams and operations, and understanding, what can we do to change this and push things along, because there's clear benefit and tangible benefit in several different aspects of your business. A really simple thing when buying materials or buying construction services, request structured data, ask for information alongside. No need to really rock the boat and push things too far one direction. Have your vendors and supply chain who are used to what they're doing provide that information in their unstructured format, however they normally do, but also say, hey, can you provide an Excel spreadsheet alongside with that? That would really be helpful to us. We can then put it into our industry-specific data management platform, churn that through, sync it up with our entire organization. Now we've got something that we can use to run and do things better as an organization. Another thought, obviously, to check out the industry organizations such as GPA Midstream, Minga, EIC has some data templates. There's a lot of work being done to standardize, the various naming conventions for information. Embed that into your procurement process. Why not? That helps. Then you're getting a consistency across any of your projects, across all of your assets. That's a key part of that data management philosophy that we want to impart on everyone. Add this to your procurement process. I think just generally that's a good concept. think about the data, not just the physical components or the services that are coming. Think about that, because that's what you have to operate your infrastructure forever. So really important to start thinking about those things. And then a second set of recommendations, obviously, we'd recommend starting to look at these industry-specific data management platforms, such as what Vintri can provide. I think it's just to kind of close the loop on it again and reiterate some of the points. It's applying context goes a long ways. There are data management platforms out there, big, broad solutions that may be able to house your information, but not necessarily extract the value out of the information that you really need. And so I'd really encourage everyone to start exploring these industry-specific data management platforms. Data integrity is a huge concept that we preach as a business, in terms of the data isn't always right, and it's not necessarily the supplier's fault or the vendor's fault. It's just how things go sometimes. So having a solution that can apply not only that context, but data integrity principles as well, to actually prove that the information is trustworthy and usable for your long terms, that is imperative. So I would encourage you to check any of those types of solutions out. They're easy to roll out. You can start with single project engagements, learn and see how this benefits your organization specifically. And then, of course, you can roll these out in a much bigger fashion after that. We know, from our experience, this can apply to anything new that you're building. You can also apply these industry-specific data management solutions to your existing infrastructure. So you don't necessarily need to be building new infrastructure for this to be of value as well. And just a quick last slide to kind of give you some context on the Vintri side of things, how we do it. I touched on a little bit in that slide prior to this, but our big focus is on that context, data integrity, and really good structure in terms of how your data is held and accessible for you. Providing you with that ability to, whether you just want to navigate to that information and see what's going on, what you have, trend, analyze, report, or embed this into your day-to-day operations. You've likely all got some sort of mapping and visualization tool, a GIS platform. You've probably got a material management platform and an asset integrity program. They can all run better with a solution such as ours, feeding them that good information that has been validated, contextualized, and trust brought to that information. So we'd be happy to obviously provide anybody with further information on that. We'll share some information on it on the last slide here as well. But with that, I can open things up to questions.
Thanks so much, Brendan. Really appreciate it. And we will share the slides after the presentation as well. So thank you for that. So I guess we'll just start off with some questions. And again, everyone, if you have questions, please post them to the chat and I'll ask them. So you mentioned, if we could just go back to, you mentioned an example of the industry-specific data management solution that has been able to help with some ESG related initiatives. And you mentioned the ability to have a client get a lot of trucks off the road. Could you give another example of how this solution helps with the ESG efforts?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, it's, I touched on it a little bit as well in the presentation, but I think, one of the big benefits, not just on the E side, but maybe the S and G side of things, is that ability to report and provide kind of, trust, public trust, let's call it, whether it's channeled through our regulatory bodies or whomever it may be, but that confidence that the public can have that we know what we have, what we're doing, what we're operating, etc. I think is a really good message to share. And using a solution such as this, where you can really easily report where in cases where you needed to, that goes a long ways towards building that credibility and helping with, I think, more the S and the G side of the ESG story.
And then you mentioned some recommendations for anything new that an owner-operator is building. But could you elaborate a little bit more on how it works with existing infrastructure and incorporating this solution into existing infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, that's always, a question that we get a lot of in terms of, well, hey, yeah, new stuff, I get it going forward because we can engage with our supply chain and we have control over it, let's say. But, most of the folks on this call probably have infrastructure that can be anywhere from, 1 to 80 years old or more that they're operating and successfully operating. And the records and documentation and information about that infrastructure can range quite extensively, I'd imagine. So, it's about starting somewhere, and I think probably a lot of people have started to embark on some kind of digitization process. And I guess my recommendation in that space is that there are solutions such as ours that can help go into that, and you don't have to do the be all end all type of solution to scrape every single piece of data out of those documents, but you can start to apply some of that semi-structured concept that I mentioned. All of your work orders, all of your as-built may have tags that allow you to do this, and they can be loaded. The documentation can be loaded just like structured data into platforms such as ours, and allow you to have a lot more accessibility to it. It's not that granular level that I speak about with the structured data side of things, but it allows you to at least start to run some of that validation. Like I said, the TBC compliance. Do I have my hydro test? Do I have a mill test report, etc.? And do that in an automated fashion, as opposed to having somebody kind of go in and manually check these things all the times. Can really increase efficiency, help with the kind of transparency inside your organization as to where gaps or risks may exist, and can be really quite beneficial for you.
Another question, can this type of solution be consistently applied to any type of energy infrastructure or facility? And are there any limitations?
Oh, you bet. That's a good question. And I think, think about the types of components and data that we're dealing with when we're talking about this. It's pipes, valves, flanges, fittings, weld data, connections, etc. All this really kind of granular data about what you have. And so, long answer short, absolutely. Apply this to everything, whether you're building a large facility, an LNG plant, or whatever it may be. These concepts very much apply to, a pipeline, a short 2-mile pipeline, a full transmission line, gathering processing lines. They're all comprised of similar components, similar data coming from similar sources. And it's our recommendation that absolutely apply this consistently and broadly, and solutions such as ours can work with you on any of those types of solution, any type of situation that you're dealing with within your organization.
Brendan, what are some of the common pitfalls that owner operators run into if they aren't using an industry-specific data management solution? For example, if they're using a more general data management platform.
Yeah, that's that's a good question. Again, it's kind of what I touched on in the presentation. You can certainly house your information. I think there's no doubt that that's doable, and I'm sure we all see it. We all do it, in our day-to-day lives, even. But I think it's that lack of context in those types of solutions. One, you're probably not going to unlock all the value that you can out of the information. You haven't got context and standardization. It might be there. You could search for it for a while and try to figure out maybe what went wrong or if there was a mistake. But you're not going to be able to kind of unlock all that value that we spoke about through the presentation. And then second to that, those systems aren't necessarily designed with the quality of the data in mind. They're about getting it into a resting place, a cloud storage solution, or whatever it may be. And like I said, again, they serve a purpose. But if you're not applying those kind of contextualized data integrity concepts, how does the pipe go through a life, go through its life cycle, or various other components of your infrastructure, and applying the concepts of data integrity, that's really where I think you can run into some risk, actually, because you leave if anything were to go wrong down the road and you have to dig things up and it's unvalidated, hasn't had those concepts of data integrity applied to it, you can expose yourself to a little bit of risk there.
So can you explain in a little bit more detail as to how an owner-operator can work with their supply chain to ensure that data is provided in a structured format?
Yeah. So I touched on that as well a little bit at the end of the presentation, but I think it's really, as easy as as working with your procurement groups. How do you buy this material? We're putting out RFPs, RFQs, and it's really easy to embed, a data template, a format, a frequency for how you expect that data. One thing that's really important, I think, as well, that we should all consider is how frequently we're getting this information. Get it early and often so that you can validate it. The more you can mitigate risk before things are buried underground, the better. So, I would highly encourage to just kind of take a look at how your procurement process is done, what is being asked for. And I'm using pipe as a simple example, but I think it's something we all probably deal with in some way, shape, or form. What are you getting in addition to the physical pipe itself? The data, the quality data, the information, the mill reports, the various, all that sort of supporting documentation and information. How are you getting it? And there are great templates. API 5MT exists out there for the mill test reports, mill test certificates in terms of a digital format for that. There are ways that you can embed that right into your process. It's easy. The supply chain is coming along with this as well. It's kind of inevitable. So ask for it and give it a frequency as well when you expect that. And then, start to look at how that can be done on a regular basis and consistently throughout your organization, and then managed consistently as well, because that's when you're really going to start to get that big benefit.
And can you provide an example of an owner operator that has applied the Vintri solution on a single project and then elected to roll it out to a larger share of their operations? And what led them to do so? And what was the time frame going from a single project to a bigger rollout?
Yeah, that's definitely, I think one of the things that often can scare people off is, well, hey, you have to come and roll out this like massive enterprise-wide solution that can be quite daunting. And typically, if it's not contextualized, there's a very lengthy and expensive implementation process, which I think we're all somewhat afraid of these days. And fair enough. So we in the Vintri world, we've worked. We like to work with our customers in allowing them to try it out, use this on a project, use this on a one-off basis, and that can be existing infrastructure or a new build, small-ish pipeline or processing plant or whatever it is that you're doing, and really start to see how that value could be unlocked for your organization. And once you accomplish that, very cost-effective, easy way to kind of get this started and start on this process, assess where you're at as an organization. And then the process can move quite quickly to rolling this out. And again, I cite because the solutions such as ours are contextualized and they understand the energy in the oil and gas industry. We're able to really quickly roll it out in a way that's getting to value quickly for you, which also I think is quite relevant and important as we do this. So timeline can be quite quick, but again, it's a matter of being able to kind of prove that on a small, bite-sized chunk for the organization, so that everybody can kind of understand the value, see how it applies. And there's value for people building it, the procurement groups, people in operations. So it's really a broad umbrella of value that can come from this type of a solution. So great to share it on a small trial size and then work your way up from there to something bigger.
Great. Thank you so much. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. Brendan, I want to thank you for sharing this information with us today and giving us an opportunity to learn a little bit more about Vintri Technologies. Are there any parting words you'd like to share before we sign off? Hadn't thought those through.
It can sometimes seem like a daunting task, but I'd encourage everyone to just kind of take that first step. Talk to your procurement group about how you're buying material, how your RFPs are set up, and once you kind of take that plunge and take that first step, it actually really becomes quite easy and quite valuable. So that's obviously a big first thing, and then second thing is context is key in this, right? It's so important to have solutions that understand your business and what you're doing and the regulations that we all endure with and deal with. So that's kind of a plug for Vintri and what we do, but it's certainly, I think the value is there to back it up. So yeah, that's my parting wisdom. And if anybody has golf tips, I'm all ears as well.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much, Brendan. I appreciate your time today, and thank you everyone for participating. We hope you have a nice rest of your week. So thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Laurie.